Hello, I'm Leroy Garcia, and this is Blu-ray and Gallery Podcast. Today, we're via Zoom. We're interviewing Mark Pugh, and we had a kind of interview, I think, about 5 years ago for one of our Tau Six
Right.
about one of those paintings, but we never got into your story. So I'm glad you're here today, and we love the opportunity to get to know you better, so our audience could get to know you better, and hopefully we'll get some more appreciation for you out there. 'Cause you're a pretty awesome painter.
Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome. All right. So first of all, why don't because we haven't really did an interview on your bio, give me a little bit of information about how you started as a painter, what influences in your early life did you have, things of that nature.
Well, I mean, I grew up in a home where both of my parents were artistic. Neither one were um, uh, professional artists or career artists, but they both had a certainly some experience in art. They both dabbled, and my dad was actually pretty good. I believe he was easily good enough to have made a career had he chosen that path, but he didn't. So myself, my brothers, just we grew up in a home where drawing and art were art books, all of that were just a thing. Something I love. Spent so much, too much probably, of my time drawing, getting terrible grades because I just wanted to draw during class. ADHD, and the couldn't really pay attention. I draw, and always wanted to be an artist. Uh, but it wasn't until later, after I graduated college, that I was encouraged by my wife, my cousin Jeff Hine, to pursue a career in art, to really make that a focus.
I didn't realize you were related to Jeff.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow, another great painter, more on the religious end,
right.
from what
Pretty
I
good.
see. Yeah, he's actually fantastic. Well, it's in Utah, there's such a large amount of great artists through that valley, from Salt Lake all the way down to
Mhm.
Provo and beyond. But amazing, and some of it has influence, I think, from Maynard Dixon and helping build the art scene out of BYU. But definitely an area full of great talent. So you originally studied psychology before committing to art,
Yes.
right? So, how does your background in psychology influence your work, themes, process, symbolism?
I think of it more of a correlation than a causation. I think the same things that interested me in psychology are many of the same things that drive my art. Just I'm extremely curious about the human mind, the human experience, understanding who we are as people, um, how we relate, intertwine, and connect. Um, as a society, as a species in general. All of those things really, really fascinate me. I often, a lot of that comes through in my art.
Yes, it does. I didn't realize that you had a degree in psychology, but it makes sense when I look at your work because it's a little bit of surrealist, it's a little bit of darkness. It's a
Oh,
mixture of all kinds of stuff. What was the catalyst that got you into art? Because I mean, as far as a professional painter, it seemed later in life.
yeah. Again, it was, Jeff encouraging me to do it. But I mean, what I would really say is, instead of like what was the catalyst of getting me into art in general, but what was more of what sort of brought me to where I believe my art identity is. What makes my art, what makes it look like my work. And a lot of that was just simply, you know, for uh, for years, a number of years, I painted, I worked, I feel like I produced some good, solid, technically well-crafted work. But I struggled to sell. I struggled to really kind of sort of strike a nerve in the overall art space. And then almost as a final desperation before I just kind of threw in the towel and said, I don't know that I can do this. I've got a family, I've got children, I've got to try to provide for. I said, I'm not going to care about what anyone else does or thinks or says, or I'm not going to care about anything. And I'm going to just paint something, one painting that is just for me, that is what I want, what I like, what I enjoy, something I would hang on my wall. And I did that, and it got a tremendous response. And so I said, okay, well, I'm gonna kind of go this way. I'm gonna keep trying this, and just utilizing my love of storytelling, illustration, as well as my experience with traditional art, fine art, oil painting, and just kind of merge the two and
So
allow.
what was the what was it that people connected with in that painting? What was the subject matter?
I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't say for other people, but I could certainly say for myself, it was my own. It was much more personal, as far as just simply the style. It wasn't even, I don't even know that it was so much that it was just a really deep, meaningful painting or subject matter for myself. It was more that this was art I was excited about. This
Hmm.
was something that motivated me and made me feel as if I was able to finally just share and express elements of who I was, who I wanted to be, and the types of messages I wanted to share.
Hmm.
And so in that way, it was very personal. It was a painting of my daughter. Uh, I believe this was the first one. My daughter holding a stick with that had a string at the end and a little birdhouse on the end, and these illustrated these illustrated birds that were sort of emerging three-dimensionally, coming out of the painting. It was called bird catching. And it was unique. It was different. It was interesting because I'm kind of a weird guy. Weird guy. I like weird things. I like dark things. I like things that that are outside of what's outside of most people's comfort zone is where my comfort zone is. Like those
Hmm.
things are comfortable to me. So sharing a lot of that just kind of it 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 was something that people could stop and look at and say, "Hey, this is kind of different. This is kind of unique."
Yeah. I wanted to go over a couple of paintings that we have in our inventory that we
Certainly.
have. And I don't know, the first one I want you to talk to us about is Girl Sitting for a Portrait on an Unusually Windy Day.
I drew inspiration for that one for sort of especially today, where we kind of have this image of ourselves that we want to present openly, publicly. Think social media, just in general. Our society has become so open, so public,
Mhm.
and we have one image. And so, if you look at that painting, you have the girl sitting there, and on one side of her, there's a camera, and so the portrait, even though the portrait it has a double meaning, it's a portrait as a painting, but it's also an image of a girl sitting for a photograph portrait. I do a lot of old timey stuff. I like sort of the way kind of breaks out of the modern, but still allows me to kind of push modern ideas
Hmm.
outside of a modern setting. And so if you look at the girl, the side the camera would see is
Profile.
is yes, it would be a profile. So the profile that the camera would see, that side of her is neat. It is, the hair is out of the way. Her hand is positioned calmly on her dress. Everything looks as it should for what the photograph would see, what would be displayed publicly. But if you look at the other side of her, her hair is in her face, her hand is clenching the bottom of her dress, trying to keep it from blowing away. And so it's that duality of what we share in public is only a very curated, careful representation of what we want people to see. And people don't see that behind the scene. They don't see the tumult. They don't see the wind blowing in our lives and just kind of making everything disorderly.
Man, that's pretty deep. That's pretty good, Mark. That's awesome. So a common theme in Mark's paintings is the use of a girl, right? Yeah, there's a lot of
Yes, I
paintings
have
of
4
girls.
daughters, and they're incredibly beautiful and incredibly grudgingly willing to sit for photographs. Some of them like it more than others, but they're
Yeah.
all willing to
So
sit.
they're your muse.
They are, yes,
Yeah,
and
that's
they keep
awesome.
getting older and older. So,
Yeah.
either I gotta stop painting little girls, or I gotta find other little girls to paint, or something,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
Well, it's funny they do grow fast. All right, let's talk about this one. Girl with a ornate mirror and brush.
yeah, and that's the same daughter. And I think there's a similar theme there. Again, just at the time, especially as with my daughters growing, I'm not a big social media person. Um, in my personal life, that's fine. Business life, I probably should be a little more out there. I'm just a very private person, just by nature. Again, that's my comfort zone. Um, but that one was very sort of almost and the what was the name of the artist? The Son of Man, the painting with the man with the apple.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So that was a very loose inspiration for that painting. More along the lines of I like the idea of having a portrait of a person where the subject of the portrait is so concerned about looking at herself that we, the viewers, don't get to see it.
Yeah.
She's hogging all of the attention. She's hogging it all for herself. She gets to see herself. She gets to see the portrait. We want, beautiful as that mirror might be, we want her to move it. We want to see what's there. And so I like the idea of having a portrait where the face is hidden.
Hmm.
But of course I did want to almost as a way where we don't really care how beautiful that ornate mirror is, because we as humans, we love faces. That's how we communicate with faces. And so you just want to move that beautiful mirror out of the
Yeah.
way. Want to see her. What is her expression? What is she doing? Why is she doing this? And it's almost a tease for the viewer.
Yeah. It's another a very and the color palette on that is very beautiful as well. I love
Thank
that. Okay, let's talk about this one, the sleepy girl and the noisy bird.
you. That one
Is another
is
daughter?
no, actually no, that's a niece.
Oh, niece. Oh,
So
okay.
that's a niece, and she's a um, lives close and is good friends with my daughters. And over one day, I said, "Hey, you want to pose for a painting?" And I set her up. But so for that one, um, I'm there are several elements to my paintings. first I want a beautiful composition. I want a painting that you can just look at and you can ignore the narrative, you can ignore the symbolism and just see something beautiful. That's element one. The second is the narrative. I want it to tell a story, a simple story, almost like what you might see children's book, fairy tale, something along those lines. And then the third is that deeper meaning. That one, the simple story being a girl, she's got this noisy bird, she can't sleep, and she's just out of desperation, sleep deprivation, takes it out, lets it go. And, you see the little bird is kind of outside the border
Mhm.
there of the illustration, but the meaning there being the way in which we have things in our lives that we love, that we're close to, that we're very attached to, that are important to us, but that are also harming us, that are a problem, that we know as much as we love this thing, it is not good for us. It's a problem. And it's that difficulty in having to let those things go,
Mhm.
letting go of some of those things we're attached to. So she loves this bird, but it's just too much. It's too much. She has to let it go.
And then the forged steel fence in the background, is there meaning on that?
The what?
The forged steel, the background, the forged steel.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of,
And that's kind of like that. I wanted that to be a visual metaphor, to feel almost imprisoning, just this, this looming, oppressive iron gate that kind of symbolizes sort of that prison of sleep deprivation, that difficulty, the struggle, the oppression she was feeling, that led to her having to feel like finally she was letting it go. But it mirrors the cage that the bird is in. So it's the bird was in a cage like that. She's letting the bird go, knowing it's best for the bird, but also recognizing her own kind of cage that she's in. So there's a I often work in multiple meanings, metaphors. There's lots of symbolism in my paintings.
yeah, and that's what I wanted to point out because your paintings are very cerebral, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And there's intent. And a lot of times in the gallery present the artwork, but
Mhm.
I don't necessarily give the dialogue of what it's about because I like to let people kind of figure out what they see in it.
And
But
I don't either. I put a lot of the symbolism, these visual symbols in my paintings, not as some kind of puzzle to solve, although I think those that can be fun sometimes. And it can be really interesting to hear as a viewer like what the painter was doing. But it's more that all of these visual symbols and metaphors together allow the meaning to just be communicated on a subconscious level with the viewer. They can understand what's going on even if they don't understand all of the symbols individually.
right, right. Well, let's conclude with this last one, and I have maybe a
Yeah.
couple more questions.
Okay.
The young artist sketching the bird, sketching
Yeah.
the bird.
Okay. Yeah. That one is very meaningful to me. Being myself young, really loving art, and also music. And even though the music element of that is definitely not at the forefront, all of my paintings, you might say, are kind of comprised of the accompaniment, which is the background, which is the surroundings, and the melody, which is those focal points, those notes that stand out, that really, really resonate. And with that one, it's almost like sheet music. You can look at it and you can see almost the flow, the girl there, the bird, just the small little bird balancing out, even though the bird is very small, I position that bird very intentionally and with that very bright color to balance the weight of the girl on one side, the bird on the other, so that even though that heavier size weight of the girl is much larger, it doesn't, I didn't want it to feel out of balance. I wanted to feel very symmetrical. I'm not a big believer in the golden rule, the golden ratio. The golden rule is fine. The golden ratio, I'm not a big believer in. You know, people will gather all kinds of sort of mystic symbolism, things like that. But because of that, and because this was a painting about art specifically, I did use that golden ratio in that painting is there with the girls. I believe her face, I'm trying to remember now, and I believe with the bird as well. But you know, and then just more of the direct metaphor of she's sitting there drawing a bird who, as she draws it, emerges from that drawing in the background. So as I'm drawing the background, she's drawing the bird is coming to life, she's coming to life through me. And so it's this almost, there's a meta aspect to that painting of me recognizing that what she's doing, drawing the bird, I'm doing painting her and drawing that background. So it's a sort of like, you know, this meta, this cycle process there. And I did use my second oldest daughter for that. Her name's Elsie, and she has been the one of my daughters that has been, whether or not she becomes an artist herself, really shows an interest and a real strong potential. She's very good, and
Is she
so
drawing already?
she does. She does. She's got a she's again like me. She's got maybe a few too many hobbies that kind of spread her thin. You know, I would write music, and I was in plays, and I wanted to be a writer, and I mean, I just anything that I could do creative. I'm just. It's like I have the creative energy just bursting from me, and I just had to do something with my life. She
That's
may be an
nice.
artist. She might not. I don't know, but she definitely has the
Well,
potential.
art is about practice, practice, practice for sure.
Oh yeah, there.
So you're considered one of the top figurative artists in our country, and right?
So
Yeah.
you,
Did you win?
I'll let you say that.
Did you win an award in the last few years? I can't remember. I think you
Yeah,
did.
yeah. In fact, that one, the Young Artist Sketches Bird, Sketching a Bird, that was a finalist for the Portrait Society of America, their annual competition. I got first place in that competition 2 years before that. I was a finalist another time before that. I got the ARC award, the grand prize one year. Um, yeah, there's a few. I have been fortunate enough to have some of my work
So
recognized.
your skill level is very high. If you look at that, um, how did you develop the caliber of the painter that you are today? Was it just did it just happen overnight, or did you just how
Oh,
did you come to this?
it's not overnight, over life, I would say,
Over
over
life.
decades. Yeah, yeah, like I said, I spent so much time drawing when I was young, and I do feel like I had I don't know, natural knack, or just by sheer virtue of spending so much time drawing when I was young. You know, I was significantly ahead of my peers, my classmates, with my drawing skills. And then, you know, after I graduated college, I took a few art classes in college, which, you know, helped a little, but it was Jeff Hine, you know, he encouraged me, and he also allowed me with, you know, Justin Taylor, Sean Dedeker. and Ben McPherson, the Bridge Academy years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I attended there for a year or two, and then I went up to Jeff's school in Salt Lake, and I wasn't a student there, but I was sort of like an assistant with some of his classes up there, and so just spending time around those guys, it's just a lot.
That's a lot of talent there
It is
too.
a lot of time.
I
There's a
was
lot.
I was I
Yeah.
was talking to Sean the other day, and I talked to Ben. Actually, I did a little lecture there one year for
Oh,
them. But I
I
told him,
remember. I was there. Yeah,
were you
I
there?
remember.
In I was just saying that the influence of that little academy, it didn't last that long, but it was very powerful. And the collective,
Was there were a lot. There were a number of artists who came
yep,
out of there that were just really had
yeah.
some very successful careers.
And everybody has their own voice, their own style, but the caliber is just off the charts
Yeah,
for all of you
absolutely.
guys. Actually,
Yeah,
it was Ben McPherson that took me over to see Jeff's studio, and I had met him right before that lecture once. But
yeah,
I was like, I was so impressed at the size and scale of what he's doing. But
yeah.
well, Mark, thank you for doing this little podcast with us today. Like I say, it's a good introduction to our clientele. Thank you for taking the time, and we feel very honored to have you in our stable. And we're going to get a show going. When is that? Do we have that planned yet? But we're going to get a show in the future here, a solo
Yeah,
for you.
it's going to be a ways away. I'm working on a show right now for next year. I think
Yeah,
we're gonna
maybe 2027 or something.
20, yeah, maybe 20. Well, mine's the end of 2026. Probably for me need to be more in 2028.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll look forward to that and we'll get little pieces here and there. And it's always an honor. Like to thank everybody for watching Blue Rain Gallery podcast. Yeah, you can subscribe to us on any of the platforms, Spotify, iTunes, whatever you like. If you don't like any of that, you can always go to blueraingallery.com under the menu bar podcast. Also, like to encourage people to visit our online shop where you can bring art into your everyday life, bluerainprintshop.com. Thank you, Mark.
Right.
All right. Well, take care, brother.
Thank
Have
you.
a good one.
Bye.